The Eagles have been making moves, as Howie Roseman just possibly made his best signing of the entire free agency period by bringing in a new pass rusher with insane potential. So why is this the perfect move, and why is the Birds' other new pass rusher an extremely underrated addition as well? Meanwhile, the Birds just made a great move to extend an Eagles legend in Lane Johnson, while another legend just announced that he's calling it a career. Plus, the Birds won't like this update regarding Quinyon Mitchell and Cooper DeJean, while A.J. Brown and DeVonta Smith's contracts look better than ever, and hear why the Eagles' most daring move of the entire offseason could actually end up paying off. So we're going to dive into all that and more starting right now. I think it's pretty safe to say that this Eagles offseason has been rather difficult for some fans to deal with at times, just with the amount of players they've lost. However, the more the dominoes fell, the more Howie Roseman and the Eagles' plans became clear, and those plans were to sign cheap free agents, acquire draft picks, rely on younger players, and ultimately clear up as much money as possible to make sure that they have the space to sign their own up-and-coming stars to extensions when the time comes. And this is a plan that I've broken down more in depth in previous videos, but that's the basic gist of it. And now, the Eagles just went out and made several more moves that fit perfectly into that plan. First, making probably my favorite external signing of the entire free agency period so far by bringing in now former Giants edge rusher Azeez Ojulari on a one-year contract worth $4 million. And man, I gotta say, I absolutely love this signing. I mean, Ojulari is someone who I've talked about for a while, and also, better yet, who the Eagles have had on their radar for a while now, going way back to 2021 when he was drafted, also the NFL trade deadline this past season, and then of course also leading into free agency this offseason. And that's for good reason, as not only is Ojulari a former Georgia Bulldog who played with all the other Philly dogs at UGA, but he also has been an extremely productive player and pass rusher when healthy for the Giants, as he put up 8 sacks in his rookie year, which was a franchise record for them for most sacks by a rookie, and he also put up 5.5 sacks and 3 forced fumbles in 7 games in 2022 and 6 sacks in 11 games this past year. The big question mark with Ojulari, though, is his health, as he's dealt with a lot of lower body injuries and hasn't been able to complete a full season since his rookie year, and actually hasn't been able to play in more than 11 games. So obviously that's a concern, but at the same time, if he can just stay healthy, he very clearly has insane potential. And the value they got for him is just amazing. I mean, think about this. The Eagles just lost Josh Sweat, an almost 28-year-old who had 8 sacks in 16 games last season, to the Arizona Cardinals, who gave him a 4-year contract worth $76 million, so an average of $19 million a year. Meanwhile, the Eagles just signed Ojulari, a 24-year-old who had 6 sacks last year in 11 games, to a 1-year $4 million deal. So again, that should give you some perspective. And look, I'm not saying that Ojulari is better than Sweat, as Josh has been far more consistent during his career. He's been healthier. He plays a higher percentage of snaps. But again, it's the value at which they got Ojulari that makes this a great signing. And who's to say he can't go out there and get 8, 9, 10 sacks next year if he's healthy? I mean, I think he is more than capable of that. So again, this is yet another one of those low-risk, high-reward moves that the Birds have made all free agency long. And now Ojulari is going to get to play in an Eagles defense where, 1, he is obviously largely familiar with a lot of the players, but 2, that also is immensely talented and features stars like Jalen Carter and Nolan Smith on the defensive line. And that's only going to make things easier and create more favorable matchups for Ojulari. And again, if he can just stay healthy, there's good reason to believe that Ojulari could break out, and this could turn out to be an absolute steal for the Birds. And honestly, I feel a pretty similar way about the other pass rusher the Birds just signed in Joshua Uche, who, despite not being consistent getting sacks outside of his 2022 11.5 sack season, he has been very consistent at pressuring the quarterback, as his 16.7 pressure rate since 2022 is 6th among edge rushers in that time, and his 15% pressure rate for his entire career is pretty high. So again, despite not getting the sacks sometimes, Uche still makes an impact and consistently does his job, and eventually that consistency could pay off like it did in 2022. And that's something that Uche talked about in his introductory presser on Monday.
It was a situation where early in the season, Coach Belichick had me as the pass rush coordinator. And, I was getting some pressures in and things like that, but the sacks weren't falling. But you just continue to swing, and eventually they come in bunches. So continuing to do your job, even though you're not getting the results you want. And even, you can't be a selfish player in this game. You got to do your job, and the stars will align, and eventually your time will come. So it was a situation where I just kept swinging, and then that stretch came, and I did what I was supposed to do. And that's always the player I've always been. Sometimes the sacks haven't always reflected that, but whenever I'm on the field, I'm efficient, and I try to win. So
Again, I think Uche is a really underrated addition. I mean, like Ojulari, he's one of those low-risk, high-reward guys with a lot of potential, and those pressure numbers make you think that given a bigger role and a chance to play alongside some of the talent the Eagles defense has, he could break through and put up big sack numbers once again. And that's even more true after hearing what he had to say about what he brings to Vic Fangio's defense.
I think just hard work, speed, reckless abandonment to the football, man. Just pass rush, you name it. I just doing my job, man. Whatever it takes to help the team win, and just competing and working hard.
Again, I think the Uche signing is fantastic. I feel the same way about Azeez Ojulari, and I feel like both of them very clearly have the potential to turn out to be absolute steals for Philly at edge rusher. And something else that's a steal is the value they're getting when it comes to the A.J. Brown and DeVonta Smith contracts in comparison to one of the NFL's other premier wide receiver duos. As of course, both were signed to big contract extensions last offseason, with A.J. getting 3 years for $96 million, averaging out to $32 million a season, while Smitty got 3 years for $75 million, which averages out to $25 million a season. And I bring this up because the Bengals just finally paid their star duo late Sunday night, with Ja'Marr Chase getting 4 years for $161 million, which comes to around $40 million a season, while T. Higgins got 4 years for $115 million, which averages out to about $29 million a season. So when you step back and look at it, you can clearly see that this is another masterclass by Howie Roseman, as by doing their extensions early, the Eagles are now paying their Super Bowl champion wide receiver duo $12 million less a season on average than the Bengals are paying their duo. So this is just one more thing that shows you not only why the Eagles are one of the premier organizations in the NFL, but also why you have absolutely no reason to not trust Howie Roseman's plan. And that's a plan that apparently included extending future Hall of Fame tackle and Eagles legend Lane Johnson for 1 more year, being 2027, while also giving him $8 million more over the next 2 years and an additional $30 million in guarantees. And first off, I gotta start by saying that Lane Johnson 100% deserves it, as he's still far and away one of the best tackles and offensive linemen in all of football, maybe even the best, despite the fact that he's about to turn 35 years old in early May. So a pay raise was definitely in order, and the fact that it comes through an extension through 2027 is amazing because it clearly shows that Lane is planning on playing for at least the next 3 years, and he's not really planning on retiring anytime soon. And the other good news is that while we don't yet know exactly how this is going to affect the Eagles' cap space, you'd have to imagine that the Birds will receive some sort of cap relief, whether it's this offseason or in the future, as is the case with pretty much every other extension that Howie Roseman hands out. But while one all-time Eagle is planning on playing for years to come, another legend is officially hanging him up. As on Tuesday at 12 p.m., the 2-time Super Bowl champion Brandon Graham held a press conference where he emotionally announced that he will be officially retiring from playing in the NFL after 15 seasons with Philly.
So Brandon's going to give some opening remarks for questions.
I'm going to try with this speech right now that I got for y'all. First, I just want to say thank you to everybody already. But y'all know I gave everything I had in this. And I don't have no regrets. That's one thing I tell them young boys. Don't have no regrets. And so first I just want to say 15 years ago, I walked into this city as a young man with dreams. Big dreams, a little bit of nervousness, and a whole lot of fire in my heart. I had no idea back then what this journey would bring. I didn't know how many times I would be tested. I didn't know how much I would grow. And I surely didn't know how deeply I would fall in love with these fans and the team in this city. Today, as I sit here, I just want to thank God because I know He was the main reason. You know, that was the biggest thing. I love my growth, my relationship with Him, and just so much that I've shared with my teammates and reflecting on a career that has meant everything to me. I am overwhelmed with gratitude. My entire life has been forever changed because of this magical place.
BG's obviously an Eagles legend, as after being called a bust in the early stages of his career, he went on to prove all the doubters wrong and become one of the greatest players in franchise history, playing the most games for the Eagles ever, being the longest tenured Eagle of all time, having the third most sacks in franchise history, and of course being a two-time Super Bowl champion, making essentially the game-winning play by strip-sacking Tom Brady in the first one, and coming back from a torn tricep and playing through it even after re-tearing it on the way to a dominant win in the second one. I mean, what else can I say besides thank you, BG, we love you, we're certainly going to miss you, definitely one of my favorite Eagles of all time, and Philly wishes you nothing but the best moving forward. And if you want to get something to celebrate BG's career, then you can order my 55 Legend tee on my merch shop and get 20% off by using the link down in my description. Moving on though, the Birds got some more unfortunate news on Monday that impacts their two young star corners, as the Houston Texans extended their star corner Derek Stingley Jr. to a 3-year, $90 million contract extension with $89 million in guarantees, making him the highest paid defensive back in all of football and completely resetting the cornerback market. And this, of course, affects the Eagles because you can now only imagine how much more expensive Quinyon Mitchell and Cooper DeJean are going to be by the time they're due to be paid if this is the direction that the cornerback market's trending. So, obviously that's a ways off in the future and something that's probably not at the forefront of Eagles' minds right now. But with a bunch of guys already signed to massive contracts and plenty of other younger stars due extensions in the near future, the direction of the cornerback market is surely something that's going to be on Howie Roseman and the Eagles' minds, as they're going to attempt to keep their young core together for many years to come. And that ultimate goal of paying as many other guys as possible is why you're going to see the Birds relying a lot more on younger players to play bigger roles moving forward. I mean, Howie Roseman has literally said that these past couple of off seasons. You saw it last year with the Eagles having the youngest defense in the league, and now you're going to see it probably even more this year. And a perfect example is what's going on at the safety position right now, as of course with CJ Gardner-Johnson being traded to the Texans in a move that was largely to clear cap space to extend other guys, the Eagles need somebody to step up and fill in with him now gone. And right now, it's looking like the soon-to-be 25-year-old 2023 third-round pick Sidney Brown is set to take over. Now, I've also seen plenty of people speculate that the Eagles could maybe look to take a safety in round one of the upcoming NFL draft, which, if the right guy is there, that definitely wouldn't be a huge surprise to me. And I've also seen a lot of people mention the 2022 32nd overall pick out of Georgia, Lewis Cine, who the Eagles just acquired right before the playoffs, as a potential candidate as well. And while both those things could make sense, I still do think that Sidney Brown starting is probably the most likely scenario at this point in time. And as much as I know that some Eagles fans don't really like the sound of that, I wouldn't write Sid off just yet. I mean, look, I get it. There are some very, very valid concerns with Sidney Brown, mainly being his extremely aggressive play style, leading to him being reckless at times and missing tackles or screwing up in coverage. However, that said, I feel like it's unfair to fully judge Sid as a player just yet at this point in his career. I mean, we gotta remember that the one year that Sid actually did play a role on defense, being his rookie season in 2023, was also the year where Sean Desai and Matt Patricia were in charge, and really the entire defense was bad and nobody looked all that great. And then this past year, Sid missed the entire offseason from OTAs all the way through training camp, and he didn't even start practicing again until after the Birds' bye week in week 5. And at that point, he was way behind everyone else, and he had no chance to really make up ground or earn any sort of role in Vic Fangio's defense. So, basically what I'm saying is that Sid has not had anywhere near enough playing time in Fangio's scheme or defense for us to know whether he is going to be good or not. I mean, think about what people were saying about guys like Nakobe Dean, Nolan Smith, and Jordan Davis before last season and compare that to now. I mean, heck, think about Brandon Graham and how his career started off. So, again, I mean, let's try to not write Sid off just yet, And the fact of the matter is, he has talent. As an albeit very limited snaps this year, Sid's 89.9 PFF grade has him ranked 4th among all safeties, and 84.6 coverage grade has him ranked 6th. And sure, once again, that's in a very limited sample size, and he had his bad moments too, but again, the potential is there. And while his aggressive play style can get him in trouble sometimes, it also can help him bring a lot of energy and juice to the defense, which we've seen in the past multiple times. So, I feel like there's reason to believe that given more playing time and more time to be coached up by Vic Fangio, that Sid could fine-tune his skill set, become more disciplined, and ultimately become a solid player for this Eagles defense. But we'll just have to wait and see how it all plays out. And who knows, maybe the Eagles don't roll with Sid, Cine, or a draft pick after all, and instead they try and acquire a more well-known veteran, considering that they almost did just that with now Saints safety Justin Reid.
How close were you to that, which would have been pretty crazy.
Close, actually.
Really?
Pretty close, just because me and the defensive back coach there have a really good relationship. The defensive system was the same defensive system that I ran at Stanford. So that whole Vic Fangio system, I know it pretty well. And the conversations were pretty intense. The only drawback was they were just so limited in cap space that we couldn't make a deal that made sense. But the situation, the conversation was happening.
It is certainly very interesting that the Eagles went and tried to sign Justin Reid, considering everything else that they've done this offseason, and it really makes me question exactly what direction they're going to go in at the safety position, but again, we'll just have to wait and see how it all shakes out. And you guys know that I'm going to cover that situation as well as everything else that happens this entire offseason for our Philadelphia Eagles, so again, if you don't want to miss any of that, then make sure you subscribe and turn on notifications, and also while you're at it, make sure you drop a like to show some support, because it really does help me out a ton. See if we can get to at least 600 likes today. And also leave a comment down below regarding anything that I talked about in this video. Also get 20% off the 55 Legend tee using the link in my description. And if you want to watch another Eagles video, you can check this one out right here. And now with all that being said, that's pretty much all I got for this one, guys. So thank you all so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.